Well, hello, everybody, and welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Down with the Reading Quiz, how to craft meaningful formative assessments without losing your mind. We are the team from the Brave New Teaching podcast, and we are so excited to have you here. We promise to make good use of your time today. So let's get going because not a single teacher out there says, you know what, I am bored. So here we go.
So in your email, you guys should have gotten a workbook from us. So we're going to be using that to work through our masterclass. We're going to show you how you can design and use formative assessments to accurately measure student learning and specifically inform your teaching. So by the end of our time together, you guys are going to have our top 3 strategies for creating formative assessments, plus how to grade them with rubrics. So you're going to want your workbook to take notes.
And please try to stick around. Like I said before, we're going to make good use of your time. And if you stay until the end and decide to go on this curriculum overhaul journey with us that we are beginning right now, we are going to give you the opportunity to get your hands on some special bonuses that we've added to a brand new course we're going to be introducing to you. We'll give you all the exciting details at the end of this masterclass. So let's get going. And while we are on the beginning end of all of this, we know we say this to our students, but we're also going to say it to ourselves: minimize distractions. Amanda and I am Marie. We haven't introduced ourselves yet. We will, we promise. We are both notorious for having roughly 1 million tabs open on our computers at any given time. And that's what we call focus. So we understand the life of a multitasking teacher. We are asking you, though, to try to focus your attention for just the next 30 minutes so that you walk away from today's masterclass feeling that your time was well spent and not feeling like you're kind of all over the place, as we always do feel. So we want you to know that you are in the right place. You are here to do the work we're going to be doing today if you are frustrated because kids aren't reading. You're in the right place if you're ready to keep your students accountable, but aren't entirely sure how, or maybe the things you're trying just aren't working the way that you need them to. You are in the right place if you are ready to diversify and shake up your curriculum, but are overwhelmed when it comes to starting. And you are totally in the right place if you're ready to move student assessments away from recall of facts and towards actual performance evaluation.
So let's just take a second to introduce ourselves before we move forward. My name is Amanda. I'm coming to you from today, a sunny, beautiful Midwestern state. I am in Illinois, and I am a teacher, a mom, an author, a self-described plant lady. My teaching career has spanned well over a decade, and I've also been in that journey teaching teachers for a long time too, which I really love almost as much as I love teaching students. And I had to learn a lot of things the hard way in my career. And I love helping teachers learn how to harness the power of essential questions, things that I learned late in my career that I want to bring to you either now as a veteran or now as an early career teacher, so that you can have streamlined assessment and get your life back on track because you're done fumbling for all the random things that are on your plate. I don't work weekends anymore, and I spend a lot of time with my family. I'm able to shut my laptop, and I want you to learn how to do the same.
And I am Marie. As I said before, I'm a teacher, a mom. I'm a coffee enthusiast to a probably unhealthy degree, but that's okay. When I'm not teaching or with my own 2 kids who are pretty much my whole world, I'm normally doing something having to do with teaching or education. Maybe I'm on YouTube, maybe I'm on Instagram. I love talking about teaching. I love talking about curriculum and design and lessons and the things that just get me really enthusiastic and energized like this. Or I'm also a book nerd, and I am really all about those YA fantasy novel series that you just get addicted to. I love them. I love sharing them with other teachers. I love sharing them with my students when they are appropriate. So I created the Caffeinated Classroom to connect with other educators, and it has really truly brought me so much more than I thought it would when I set out on this whole journey to connecting with educators outside of the halls of my own school. And so I like to share things that I wish I had when I was first starting out. I am also a veteran teacher, and I think back at young teacher Marie and all the things, we always do this, hindsight's 2020, the things I didn't know. it doesn't have to be so hard for our new teachers and for our veteran teachers alike. I learned from my colleagues and I learned from other teachers online every single day. And so I like to share the things that I need to hear now as a veteran teacher, as well as what I needed to hear when I was brand spanking new.
So if we could indulge ourselves for a moment, I want to have you guys imagine a scenario. Can you imagine what it would actually be like to know exactly what your students are learning and the specific steps to get them where they need to be? If that sounds like this pie in the sky daydream, I think we've got something that's really going to help you guys today. It is actually possible to make this come true. We are going to walk you through right now how to craft meaningful, productive, formative assessments that move away from those gotcha moments. You guys have all seen those reading quizzes. I remember in college, we got a quote quiz over the last 26 short stories we read in the semester. And I remember thinking, really? Is that what you really want to know? Is if I remember which short story this quote was from? It was totally a gotcha moment for our professor. And I thought we were old enough to be past that. But I know that we've all had these moments where we want to just assess kids as best as we can. And we want to help you guys move toward actually assessing what kids can do.
So what we have for you today are 3 assessment keys that we have really put our minds together on our best teaching practices in our years of experience. So our first key is to move towards synthesis tasks. Synthesis, of course, means pulling together information into a new understanding. And I can guarantee that heads are nodding as you're hearing me say this, because we're like, yeah, that's exactly what we want students to do, is to create their own understanding of what it is that we are teaching them, using formative assessments to measure growth over time in the way that formative assessments should be used. Synthesis plays right into that, because synthesis responses can and should build over time. So rather than going from recall, like Amanda was saying, of a quote, what short story does this come from? Or I've given this quiz so many times, which character said this quote? Rather than that kind of recall gotcha moment, we're going to move students into making connections between things that are happening in a story or different elements of a text, providing opportunities for students to connect what they have read to what they know from class, from experiences, etc.
And so one of the solutions that I have been using in my classroom I'd like to share with you guys is called the Sesame Street quiz. This does come from Sesame Street and the little song, "One of these things is not like the other," which I'm sure you maybe remember from childhood. If not, it's really a fun little YouTube video to show your students. But the goal here, guys, is to we're not saying we shouldn't hold students accountable for their reading. Of course, our title of our program here is Down with the Reading Quiz. And what we're trying to show you guys, again, is what Marie said, that movement from recall of plot-based moments to actually making connections across a bigger chunk of reading. Because let's be honest, there are kids who are not reading, and there are kids who are skimming, and there are kids who are trying to read. And so by creating assessments that require synthesis, we're better able to get a finger on who's in which category and how to help that student the best we can. So to create a Sesame Street quiz, you're going to design an assessment that looks like this. It's got 4 items. Those items can be characters, they can be concepts, they can be ideas, they could be themes, they could actually be quotes if you wanted them to be. But your 4 items should have 3 that have a significant relationship and 1 that is an outlier. So your quiz just looks like this. I have honestly given 100 pages of reading and 2 Sesame Street quiz questions, and it is hard because now the kids are synthesizing what they've read over a large chunk to then just narrow it down and actually pull together how those pieces go together. So here's a non-literary example. If I gave you this quiz and I said, Marie, here's your question number 1. The question is asparagus, tomatoes, Bibb lettuce, and avocados. What significant relationship do 3 of them share? And why is the remaining item an outlier? What would you say?
Actually, I would talk about how tomatoes, bib lettuce, and avocados can go together to form like a house salad. And the asparagus doesn't really fit because you don't eat asparagus raw.
Okay, you guys have to think about this too. Like Marie just made a really significant connection between items because you know what happens with students? They tell me asparagus, bib lettuce, and avocados go together because they're green.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Right? Okay, well, but I've got my eyes on that, but that's because you're an English teacher. But
Yes.
here's the opportunity that we've created for students. One, there's multiple correct answers. Two, we can also share that with them that just because you've told me that they're green doesn't really tell me that you understand anything about the contents of the vegetable or how they can be applied in the real world. So like Marie's answer is so indicative to me of so many other things going on in her brain other than just whether or not she understood the conflict of the plot. So hopefully you guys will see the more you play with these, the more you actually learn about how students are reading rather than whether or not they were good at looking up the Spark Notes. So here's another example that I've used with Gatsby. And I'm excited to share more with you about Gatsby in one big course that we're offering. We'll tell you more about that later. So here's an example. Question number 1, James Gatz, Dan Cody, First Kiss with Daisy, and Sober. So you can see I've got a combination of characters, events, and even just a description, an adjective, sober. So then the kids give me a response, and you can see that these 2 student responses are really different in length, but they give me different information about how my students are comprehending what they read. And so by looking at these and learning from my students, I'm doing more on the end of, I have fewer questions and my grading is more meaningful. And I'm actually understanding what steps to take next with each student because I can see their thinking rather than just penalizing them for getting some multiple choice questions wrong. So a little digital assessment hack for you would be to throw these onto a Google form. That's how I do my Sesame Street quizzes. And then I just hit make a copy for each new set of quizzes for every reading chunk. And it's really simple. Doesn't create a lot of extra legwork for you. Remember, the goal is to get your weekends back, to get your me time back, but also be doing right by your kids. So this is just one way that I've done that and really been successful. Other than the Sesame Street quiz, there are other synthesis tasks that you can give to students for formative assessment, one of which is a one-pager. One-pagers you can assign over a single chapter of reading or even multiple chapters of reading. A one-pager looks like this image here I've got on the side. This is one that I drew with my students while reading Fahrenheit 451, and we were focusing on one of the main characters from the beginning of the story. So this was my one-pager of Mildred, and it was an analytical attempt at looking at the different pieces of part 1 that really pulled together or synthesized the character of Mildred. You could also ask students to do an argumentative body paragraph using multiple sources of textual evidence, again, synthesizing what they do know rather than punishing them for what they don't. We could do a collage of images using Google Slides, a collage video using Animoto, Adobe Spark, or any other video program that you like. And then, of course, the ultimate synthesis task would be to have a class discussion where students can pull in sources from not only the reading that they've been assigned, but other supplementary texts, videos, and things that you discussed as a class.
Okay, so our second assessment key beyond synthesis is to move toward analytical skill measurement. So we all want to remember that we are measuring skill progress, not behavior and compliance with directives. So with synthesis, we are trying to move away from recall. And here we want to move away from just following directions and being able to show actual analysis and analytical skill development. We want to provide open-ended, rubric-based assessments that provide multiple opportunities to demonstrate skills and skill development. What kind of environment is created truly with gotcha-style quizzes? It's an environment that is punitive, that is negative for students and does not really breed confidence in their skills. And so this is one major key towards moving into equity in our classrooms.
So a really simple way to do this is if you're asking students to annotate anyway, give them an annotation quiz. Have them perform for you on a limited time schedule, right? Maybe give them 5 to 7 minutes And after that reading assignment, ask them to fill out a report on 2 to 3 pieces of textual evidence that they annotated during the time that that reading was assigned. And guess what? The kids who did the reading and did the annotations, they're going to breeze through that real fast because they're going to be copying over their annotations, reflecting on what they had already thought about. And your kids who are struggling with the reading or maybe didn't do it won't be able to complete it in that time. So you're still going to get a separation of understanding which kids are struggling with the reading, which kids aren't reading, and then plan a path forward into helping each different group of kids get back on the track that they need to be on to be successful. Another way of getting kids to practice analysis that might not be necessarily connected to a novel-based unit is if you're studying rhetoric. So if you're studying rhetoric, it's really simple to just create some kind of form. So I know Marie has a different version of this than I do, but what I try to do and what I've learned in my years of teaching is that the tool you use for kids to do analysis, if the tool repeats itself over and over again, the kids get better at using the tool as the passages or as the text itself gets more difficult. If we keep giving them different tools for analysis, they're actually kind of relearning the tool, and that takes away from the content. So this is an example of a very simple, just a Google Doc version. I've got a table here, and I've got on the left things that I'm looking for kids to find in the passage that are pertinent to the rhetorical situation: the speaker, the purpose, the audience, the context, the exigence. And then on the right-hand side would be the actual tools or things that we're looking for them to find in the passage. So that could be any combination of literary devices or diction patterns, whatever your skills or targets are for that day, you can just change out what the kids are looking for, change out the passage, and you've got a new formative assessment for whatever you're studying, depending on how your unit is evolving. So that's a good hack for you guys to take into your toolbox.
And I think it's important to say here, where it says passage title here, we would have the passage title, and that big open space, Amanda is inserting an actual passage for students to analyze. They don't have to find it. She is pre-selecting it and putting it there for them. And then they're doing that analytical work that she's actually assessing.
And the amazing thing about digital is sometimes I even put videos there, commercials. It can be all kinds of things go right in there. It could be a podcast episode or a transcript. I mean, it's just the opportunities are endless. So other ways to measure skills in your classroom formatively are definitely through one-on-one conferences. This might be on a Zoom meeting or in person with 40 feet of plexiglass. It could be a door quiz. Door quizzes are something that I like to use for students when they've read a certain chunk of text and I do want to just measure comprehension. I ask the kids a different comprehension question before they can enter the room. And if they answer correctly, they can come in. If they can't answer the question correctly, guess where they stay? The hallway, and they read until they can answer that question. So it's a really fun day, kind of puts the kids back on their heels and resets our expectations for reading in the classroom and what the classroom is for. It's for a productive discussion of what's been read. And so that's always a really fun day. And then, of course, you guys can always do skill measurement kinds of things with vocabulary, terminology, using those favorite platforms of Quizlet, Kahoot, quizzes, things like that are really, really effective in the classroom.
Okay. Our third assessment key for you sounds like it has to do only with English language arts. And I know we have more than just ELA teachers here, so bear with us. I know we've talked a lot about reading, but all of this can have to do with pretty much any content area. But if we move toward writing skill measurement for our formative assessments, it does really amazing things. And that writing skill, like I said, really can have to do with just about any content area, because pretty much any content area students are going to be writing. Here's what we talk about with writing skills, at least from an ELA perspective. We cannot only teach writing when we assign a final essay as a summative assessment. We cannot have writing just be one big writing workshop week and expect students to develop those skills that have to do with writing and the writing process and editing and revising only all at once. They are not in a vacuum. Formative writing practices take students from small analytical tasks into those larger paragraph tasks. And these assessments exist between quizzes and essays, and single paragraph land, if that makes any sense. So an example that I use in my classroom all the time is a paragraph chunk quiz. And essentially, after a reading assignment, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, students are going to have limited time to perform a paragraph chunk. And a paragraph chunk is just a piece of evidence that is sandwiched between context before it, some sort of lead in, and analysis after it. So they're just writing that little chunk of a paragraph. They are going to be showing me or showing the teacher that they can put the quote into context, so they have understood what it is that they have read, and that they can analyze it. That's also getting into those analytical skills, but really putting them into writing instead of just labeling their analysis. It is limited time. It does set students apart in those who are really comfortable with writing. Those are still developing their writing skills, and those who need a whole lot more support and scaffolding when it comes to writing. It's so much better from a teacher's perspective to see these things in a formative practice rather than all at the end where it's overwhelming to kind of teach and reteach students all of these different skills. So here's an example of what a paragraph chunk quiz would look like with the novel Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. Their instructions are to, for the quote below, provide context, which we call lead-in, and analysis, which can also be called commentary, as to its significance to the character development of Katniss thus far in the novel. And so it's not a gotcha, because I'm not asking students exactly who's saying something or for fact recall, but it is an understanding of, do you understand where this is in the story? Are you following along with us? And then also, can you analyze this character development? And that character development can be swapped out to pretty much any sort of literary analysis or just different sort of an analytical skill that we want students to be working on there, and then they will write out their written analysis. And so an assessment hack here is to double dip. Like I'm saying, you can gauge more than one skill set at a time. Here, I'm looking at both reading skills and writing skills, and it's a great way to gauge both of those and assess both of those skills in their development at the same time.
As I'm listening to Marie talk, I'm thinking so much about my own journey in this process. And the one thing that we haven't really hit home on yet is that asking kids to do meaningful tasks like this, you guys, it's going to change the classroom environment where you're teaching. Kids are going to take your class seriously. Kids are going to understand that you're not there to just nitpick on little things that don't matter. This will shift entirely how your classroom runs. And it's going to make a big difference in the long run of your classroom and how kids are working for you and understanding the importance of English. And so this is another example of what I've used in my class for writing. It's very similar to Marie's, but I actually would give them a full passage of something that they have already read. So we could call this a close reading, almost like a second read, technically, right? If they did the first round, this is their second read. So maybe they're reading a passage a little longer than what Marie's looked like, and now they're going to respond to that single reading with a response that kind of speaks to the comprehensive understanding of the whole piece, while at the same time, I'm able to not analyze, but grade and evaluate their writing about what they understand from that passage. So just like Marie said, double dipping, not only on comprehension, but moving into the writing skills themselves, how you blend evidence together with lead-ins and commentary and all the good things like that.
Okay, so I'm sure, because my teacher brain would be going, great, 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 great. Does this now just compound all of the grading that I have to do? I am a teacher in Southern California, and it is odd if I have classes below the upper 30s to low 40s of students. So I completely understand looking at some of this and saying, yeah, that sounds like a lot of time for grading. It doesn't have to be. When we move towards using rubrics, even on formative assessments, I know rubrics are often thought of as a summative assessment tool. It does some pretty great things. If the goal of a formative assessment is to measure growth, then using a grading tool like a rubric that helps students see those measurements, they are able to achieve more. And we want you guys to feel free to reuse your rubrics multiple times because it helps students learn the language of the rubric and work toward improving their skills. If they can understand the target, they can meet it a heck of a lot better. It's not cheating, it's just being smart about it. Understanding how they're assessed helps them perform to the assessment. Scores and point values can also be really helpful as long as they are purposeful and students can understand how the system works. As long as they see that points are not going to be used in a punitive fashion, which I know is difficult in our current educational system. But if they can see points and scores as things that they can use to move forward, it really does help students take control of their own learning.
And one of the other reasons we love rubrics for formative and reusing them is because if the goal of formative assessment is to measure progress and growth over time, what better tool to use than a rubric that you're reusing over and over and over again? I can speak from my experience in the AP world. The AP rubrics are the exact same for every single writing task that the kids have. The language changes a little bit depending on the exact argument the kids are making, but it's incredibly important. So I do the same thing here with my Sesame Street quizzes. This is a Sesame Street quiz rubric. When we first started using them, we were trying to say this is 2 out of 3 points, or this is 3 out of 5 points. And it just became a nightmare. And then the total points, a kid could have done pretty well and then had 25 out of 50 points. That didn't make any sense. So here's a good example rubric that we use for Sesame Street. We can give them the letter grade. You can give them a qualifying word. You can give them a scale of 4, 3, 2, 1. And then over time, kids learn how to improve on that scale and how to monitor their own progress and growth.
So here's an example of a rubric that I would use for a paragraph chunk quiz. And it's actually just a smaller piece. It's basically a snapshot of a larger summative writing rubric. And so students can see it's repeated over and over again, and they're seeing the specific pieces of their writing and how it's being evaluated. We've got lead in and context, different bullet points for exactly what qualifies each exceptional or skilled or proficient. I actually don't give students anything lower than that because if they're lower than that, it's a redo. They need to at least be proficient to be able to move past each formative assessment. And then their evidence, their commentary or their analysis, and then conventions. Those are the things that they're going to be evaluated on. And here's the criteria to hit. And they will have this actually when they're taking their quiz so that they know exactly where the bar is that they need to jump over. Okay, now that we have gone through our 3 assessment keys and we have hopefully kind of turned the tide a little bit on really what assessments, specifically formative assessments, can be for your classroom, for your teaching, and for your students' learning, we would like to know, would you like to see more about how to design curriculum that makes these types of assessments even more powerful? Because they really can change the way that your curriculum works and the effectiveness if they are used strategically.
As teachers, we know that inquiry and discovery are the best ways for students to learn. Hands down, no argument. We know that the canon simply isn't serving our students the way that it should. And we definitely know that we want to be teaching authentic, tailored units that really reflect our teaching personalities and our philosophies. We understand how scary it is to step out into the unknown. We are the brave new teaching duo. We breathe and live this, and we are here to help you challenge that status quo.
Okay, it might get a little uncomfortable because our friends, it is decision time. Option number 1, are you going to keep trudging along teaching material that might feel inauthentic or ineffective, or somewhere in the back of your mind you're going, is this really quite right? And you're possibly not knowing for sure how much your students are actually learning. And take it from us, we have both been there. We know that feeling. There's no judgment on that feeling, except that it just doesn't feel right. Or are you ready to commit to crafting a relevant and dynamic curriculum map and calendar that satisfy all of your teaching goals and your objectives, and do it right now? We would like to invite you to Curriculum Rehab. It is our brand new course where we will guide you through how to prioritize the foundation of your curriculum and create the space to engage students with rigorous content that you actually enjoy teaching. Curriculum Rehab is the only teacher-led professional development program out there that not only shows you exactly how to design curriculum that is focused and well-organized, but also how to reflect yourself and your students in the content and strategies.
So what's inside this epic course? Well, we're going to walk you guys through 5 modules that are going to help you walk away from the course with an entire year planned out for yourself. So module 1 will establish a foundation. We're going to look at a lot of research. We're going to look at the philosophies and things that make curriculum meaningful to both you and your students. In module 2, we're going to actually take you guys through building a blueprint of essential questions, stringing them together and making them meaningful for your students and for the texts and skills that you need to address during the school year.
In module 3, we will be actually starting to frame out what your curriculum will look like. We're going to look at assessments because you know we like assessments. We're going to start with some summative assessments and moving backwards through formative assessments. We're going to look at how to put that into an outline of an actual course, unit by unit, and then into a year-long course, and also how to adapt that for different teaching schedules, different bell schedules, different calendars. Module number 4, we're going to start really putting things together. We're going to put up some drywall. We're going to plumb and wire for some fixtures. And that's going to involve looking through all of these units that we've outlined, the big course that we have outlined, and getting into the nitty-gritty. What is going to happen in each lesson? What are those lessons going to look like? What sort of instructional strategies are we going to be using? What sort of student practice will there be? And we also have some sample unit walkthroughs from our own classrooms to show you what this looks like as it gets put together and how it actually looks with our students in practice.
And finally, in module 5, we're going to take this demolished old curriculum that's been rebuilt into a brand new home, and we're going to transform it into a smart home, because you know that this world that we are living in is not brick and mortar anymore. We are at least a hybrid, if not fully going digital in so many places in our world. And that is what we need to do with this curriculum, is transform the most important elements, especially into digital components. So we're going to take you guys through digitizing different types of assessments and how to use tech to actually enhance your curriculum. And as we promised before, by the end of this course, which by the way, you can take at your own pace, as slowly or as quickly as works for you. But once you are done, you will have a clear and detailed map of your entire year's curriculum. It's going to be amazing. Can you imagine how good it's going to feel to hand this to the next new team member that joins your school or joins your course team? It's going to feel so good to have this all written out.
And of course, because we cannot help ourselves, we've put together some bonuses. As we've been talking about assessments here today, we put together a sample assessment bank of the 3 different assessment keys we went over. We have a bank of our assessments that you can use in your classroom and either use them straight out as they are, adapt them to fit your needs, whatever you need. We want to give those to you because once again, we cannot help ourselves.
And you guys don't forget, we are classroom teachers just like you. We're doing this whole thing full time right by your side. So please take our time, our work, our experience, use it to your advantage. If you don't have time to reinvent the wheel every single day, let us share our trial and error with you. By having an organized and clear direction curriculum map, it will inherently solve so many other items on your list, so you can devote more time to building relationships with your students and actually teaching, rather than getting stuck in this planning, grading, delivering all of your content vortex.
Okay, once again, we have another bonus, you guys. We love to find hacks and things that simplify what seems really big and scary. And so we've put together a lesson planning roadmap, and it's essentially like a checklist or a template when laying out a unit of study. It keeps things clear. It keeps them focus so that your plans don't take too many side roads, if we can just really like dive into this metaphor. And we have included some examples once again from our own classrooms, because we learn best by example, and we think that you probably do too. And once again, because we are actual real life full-time classroom teachers and spending money is kind of scary, we want you to know that we have a 30-day money back guarantee. If you get into curriculum rehab and you realize it just doesn't work for you, we will gladly give you a refund within 30 days of your purchase. There's no gotcha here. There's no gotcha quiz going on in this program. And in all transparency, we are teachers. Like we said, we are both full-time public school teachers. And so we know that finances are not something that necessarily everybody is flush with. We sat down, we had some really frank conversations about how to price out legitimate, what we know is extremely valuable content, teacher professional development. And because we are talking to you guys right now at the absolute beginning of this whole entire process with this course, we want to make sure that everybody that gets in on the ground level with us has the lowest ever price. And so you can get all of these modules and some more bonuses that we're talking about, and even more, which we're going to explain to you in just a couple of minutes, for $147. So if you want to get started today, I would like to really encourage you to go to the URL that you see at the bottom of your screen. We will be talking about this more even during our live Q&A, which is totally still happening, you guys. It's bravenewteaching.com/yes if you are ready to get started and jump into the foundation, as you can see here with module number 1.
Please don't wait, you guys. This is so important that you invest in yourself. We spend money on a lot of things to get ready for the school year, and very rarely do we actually spend that on ourselves and our sanity and something that will last us a little longer than a stack of Post-its. This is going to last you all year, and your energy is going to be restored. We're also going to give you another bonus. We have a Gateway Activity Bank. So for those of you guys who have been with us through our episodes talking about essential questions and things like that, there's always a scramble to figure out a fun way to introduce a unit. So we've also got a bank of gateway activities that we've used in our classrooms that we would like to share with you. They're straight through Google Docs. They're copies. You can do whatever you want with them. They are yours, and you can use them as they are or adapt them to fit your own units. But trust me, when Marie says we talked about this a lot, we did. We are giving you as much value as possible.
So once again, if you're ready to get started today, head over to bravenewteaching.com/yes and register. Get yourself signed up. Make sure that you take advantage of this debut special for only $147. Do you guys want to know what it's going to look like? Of course you do. When you head over to that URL, this is what you are going to see. You're going to see our little faces, and you're going to see all of the information we've just gone over. And if it's something that you have questions about, please hold on to those, because we are going to start our Q&A very, very shortly. We just want to show you what curriculum rehab looks like. It has been a labor of love, and we have been so excited to introduce it to the world. So when you do register, you will receive an email that looks just like this, and you will say, yay, I'm in. I'm so excited. And what do you do next? Next, you're going to check your email again, because you're going to get a note that comes directly from us, welcoming you, telling you all the information you need to know to actually get started, and letting you know what the next steps are going to be. One of those steps is going to be to log in to your student dashboard through the platform that we are using. You will have immediate access to the entire course from the minute that you register and you get yourself all signed up, and you can get started. Once again, if this sounds good to you, we know this is kind of overkill. We get it. We're teachers too, and we see the visual happening over and over again. We just want to make sure that if this is something that sounds kind of good to you, you have the opportunity to carpe diem and join us. bravenewteaching.com/yes. Register right now. But we know you might have some hesitations, and so we wanted to talk to you a little bit about that.
So I'm guessing a lot of you are saying to yourselves right now, I don't know if I have time for this right now. A curriculum overhaul is a big deal. It sounds like a lot of work. And that's true. But imagine doing it with us, helping you do it. And having the access at this low price right now is going to make this process so much easier for you when it does become a good time, and we're there to help you along the way. Another thing that you might be thinking is, well, I can't really revise anything because everything I've been given is mandated by my district. I can't change my curriculum. We would tell you differently. So, again, if you've been along the journey for a while, we have a lot of things to share with you guys about how to take what you've been given and then make it work for you, how to make essential questions, how to build the lines, that frame, right? This blueprint we've been talking about, how to make that part yours, even though the pieces inside, you might have to deal with those as is, but we're going to help you make it manageable and meaningful to you and your students. And you might also just feel overwhelmed by all of the resources out there right now. There are so many things floating around the internet, and we get it. But this is the one thing that you're going to get that's going to serve you emotionally and professionally throughout the whole year. Just imagine the feeling of knowing what's coming next rather than the sleepless nights on Sunday, better known as the Sunday scaries of panicking, not knowing what's coming up next. We want to give you that peace of mind that's going to kill that overwhelm with a feeling of reassurance and knowing that even if you don't have the lesson plan settled for tomorrow, you know the direction that everything's going. So you can make that whole process feel much more manageable.
And we need you to know that when we say we're here for you, we're not just here for you through our course and our modules that we've recorded and edited and polished for you. We are also here in real time. And when you register for Curriculum Rehab, you will be part of a private collaboration group. We will have a pop-up group on Facebook, which will be available for 6 weeks, live, updated, having real discussions as we all go through this process. After those 6 weeks are up, that group will be archived, so you will still have access to the weekly live Q&A sessions that Amanda and I do on different discussion topics having to do with different modules. You will have access to the different discussion boards that start either by us or by fellow collaborators in this group. We are here for you. We really do know what it's like to be scared, to want to do something different, but to be unsure. And we want you to know that we have your back. So if you are ready, once again, just head really quickly to bravenewteaching.com/yes. If you are ready to say yes to Curriculum Rehab. And without any further ado, it is now time for us to pop back over to our Masterclass Facebook group to begin our Q&A session. So we're going to take just a couple of minutes to refresh our waters, coffee, wine, wherever you're at in that journey of life. While you're waiting for us, if you want to head to bravenewteaching.com/yes, you can do so in another tab, and we will see you guys in just a moment. Thank you so much for attending our masterclass today. We are so excited to answer your questions about assessments, about those different assessment keys, and about Curriculum Rehab, and we will see you in just a second.